I've been saying how disappointed I am, so at least I'll give credit when things start to happen. And that is the Trump team, Trump and his aide Nada claimed DOJ, this is a Bloomberg headline, claimed DOJ improprieties in using 2 grand juries.
Ooh.
Florida judge wants briefing on panels in Washington and Florida. Special counsel's office is due to file a response on August 22nd. And we've been talking about this for a long time, as Mark Levin, who really started this conversation, and others have picked up on it and talked about it, that the special counsel regulations of the Department of Justice are very clear. Very clear. As a matter of fact, I think we had a graphic, it wasn't this week, earlier in the week, or last week, that laid out the special counsel grand jury is supposed to be selected in the jurisdiction where the supposed criminality happened. Well, that's not at all what happened here. Jack Smith impaneled a grand jury in Washington, D.C. for a raid that happened at Mar-a-Lago in Florida. He did all the work in D.C. and then at the last minute impaneled the grand jury in Florida and basically read to them all the work that the D.C. grand jury did. And so
fine. It's all fine.
Besides that and many other things, Levin and others have been saying what the Trump team needs to get this in front of the judge. And of course, they didn't really get it in front of the judge till the judge brought it up about 2 weeks ago on her own. So now lawyers for Trump and Waltine Nada accuse prosecutors of improperly using a Washington grand jury to gather evidence after they were charged in Florida with mishandling classified information and obstructing an investigation. The former president and his personal aide were indicted in June by a South Florida grand jury. I remember this day, and I can remember saying on this show that I could not believe they got a Florida grand jury to do this in like 24 hours. I can remember saying it because I was shocked that in 24 hours, because I knew they didn't have a grand jury in Florida, and then all of a sudden it was like, boom, we do. 24 hours later was the indictment.
Right.
Much of the investigation, though, unfolded in Washington in the months leading up to that. Special counsel Jack Smith's office said prosecutors continued to use a grand jury in the nation's capital after securing the original indictment before a Florida grand jury returned an expanded superseding version on July 27th. Nada's lawyers, joined by Trump's defense team, argued in a Thursday night court brief that using the panels in 2 locations was improper and that it could affect the government's ability to use evidence it added in the latest indictment. Smith's office is due to file a response on August 22nd. The grand jury issue was first raised amid a dispute over whether there are conflicts of interest related to Nada's lawyer, Stanley Woodward, who also represented potential witnesses that the government plans to call at trial. Prosecutors want U.S. District Judge Eileen Cannon to hold a hearing on the conflict issue and had noted that they continued to use the Washington grand jury after the Florida indictment was handed up. Woodward previously represented an unnamed witness who worked at Trump's Mar-a-Lago resort and allegedly was told that the boss, in apparent reference to Trump, wanted surveillance camera footage deleted. Prosecutors used that witness in adding obstruction allegations related to the surveillance footage. Well, the obstruction is the whole damn case, really. It's not really a documents case. It's an obstruction case in the latest version of the indictment, along with the new defendant. Nada's lawyers argued there was no conflict of interest, but even if there was, they said that the solution was to bar the government from using the unnamed witness's testimony as a consequence for their improper use of the Washington grand jury. I would bet this judge looks at it even worse than that. I just have a feeling this judge is not going to be trifled with, and she's not going to be shenanigan prone from Jack Smith and his office. Would be my best hope and my best guess.
Yeah, definitely.
That she is not going to play games with them, and she's not going to go for this kind of nonsense. I mean, and quite frankly, I think she could look at this whole thing and say, this all should have been done in Florida. It should have all been done with a Florida grand jury. And who's to say what would have happened if that's the case? Could they still have gotten an indictment? Of course, as we keep saying, the old ham sandwich deal.
Right. Yep.
But it is absolutely Trump's lawyers should argue and continue to argue And as Levin said, they should also make a motion to try to get in front of the Supreme Court if they have to on this and many other things. Remember, there's still an allegation of bribery out there that we don't really hear much about anymore.
Yeah.
That a federal judgeship was dangled in front of a possible witness and say, well, it might be harder for you to get that if you don't want to start talking bad about Trump here.
Yeah, it was actually offered to the defense attorney for one of the witnesses. Said, if you can't get this person to start saying what we want them to say, wink, wink, that judgeship you were hoping for, you keep hoping because it ain't going to happen. That's pretty much how that was going down.
Yeah, so between this issue with the grand jury placement and the locations, plus that, I just think they need to get all of it in front of the judge as quickly as possible.